So in setting hard and soft edges, it's a little bit like the way that polygroups can be set in XNormal. We can use angle thresholds, and the way that you do it in Maya is you go under Select and Use Constraints. And I've gone ahead and just selected all these edges, shift and right click, soften, harden, and just hardened everything. Just as, have everything uniformly hard or soft in one direction or the other. So select, use constraints, opens up this constraint menu. Essentially, because we're in edges, it used polygon selection constraint on edges. And we want to do all and next. And so it's going to select all of the edges, but we're going to put some constraints on the geometry. Not going to be on the length. That's the first one that opens. There's another option under here for angle. And I'm going to activate that. And this usually goes from 0 to 0, but we can set some constraints in here. We can start pushing them that we know that a lot of this stuff is going to be, we can set it to say 33. Oops, excuse me. Get in the right menu here. Can set it to 33. And you'll notice what starts to happen is that anything that falls, within this threshold stays selected, but anything that falls out of that maximum threshold doesn't get selected, which is pretty useful for us because it's kind of what we want, right? We want these edges, but we don't want certain other edges. So these are going to be a little bit harder because we want them to be hard, but they're not. Their threshold doesn't, is just about as much as these other ones, so it might be a little bit more difficult. But you can see, at a max angle of 33 for the threshold, everything that we need to have selective for the most part to stay soft is selected. And that's going to be really useful. Some things, not so much. Can bring it down to say 25. Might get a couple more things working for us. I'm going to keep it at 33. And then I'll just go ahead and soften, harden, and soften those. I'll close and reset this. And it becomes easier at this point to start to identify on other objects and on this object what is and what isn't working. If we want this, let's go ahead and delete the history. If we want these to be sharper, we can go ahead and select them. So go through the model and set these as well. We want to make sure that we set as a hard normal that needs to be set as such. These as well can be set to soft. So go through your object, look things through, base it against what you've got on your high poly, but just make sure that your hard and soft edges are being set, because we don't have bevels on most of these things, and the only places that we do are on these other objects, and those are going to get soft edges so we can see those nice round corners. We're also going to do some work on the shell separations in the UVs so that they interpret nice and smoothly. So I'm going to go through the rest of this and set the hard and soft on these as well. Use constraints, all in next. Those are all set. I'm not too worried about this object. We're going to get rid of that. Can set these to soft. You'll notice I'm not picking the ones along the actual faces. Let's go into our custom polygon display and take a look at our hard and soft normals. Pretty sure for these we're gonna make these all soft as well. Have a bevel, so those will all be soft. So take advantage of the constraints. Make sure you set it to all and next. Make sure you have your component selected. Under geometry, don't use length, use angle, activate it, and use something along the lines of 33 degrees. It may be a different threshold for you, but you're looking to get everything except these harder edges where these form transitions take place. We're going to clean up our scene, integrate that square piece for this U-hook, and name our objects, and then we'll be ready to create a UV layout.